Edgar Allan Poe wrote the story called The Pit and the Pendulum. Now, in this horror story, you have someone tied down, and above them is a swinging pendulum. And the pendulum itself is basically a half-circle knife, very sharp knife. So it's swinging back and forth, and every time it swings, it goes down a notch. So inevitably, this thing is going to go down and, cut the person in half. And this is pretty much what America's doing right now. We go from one extreme to the other extreme. There's no, it's everybody on the other side is evil. That's the side you're not on. And everybody on your side is good. And, and it's like, okay, I can only look back with my frame of reference. And, okay, you have Kennedy, Nixon, Johnson, and some of these people. I don't remember this horrible polarization and this radical shift. I mean, Reagan, even his enemies liked him as a person. Obviously, they weren't going to necessarily vote for things that were, in the Congress that were against what they believed, but they still liked the guy. But, now we've got into this, acrimony that really stirred up a lot of hate. And what we've done, you can decide where you want to pin it, but I'm pinning it as it's happening when Obama gets elected. Obama gets elected, and he's an extreme liberal. My left, you're right. Oh, my left. And he's very extreme. He's hardly held any office at all. He's a senator, but, whatever. And, people are touting him as the next Abraham Lincoln. I'll remember that. People saying that. When he's running, what's this? Someone says he's their Lord and Savior, And so, anyway, he's very polarizing because he's so liberal. He's not, like, here's the center. He's not like the rest of the Democrats here. He's like way here. So what does this create? Well, this creates an environment where the pendulum is going to swing further the other direction. Now, in the year 2000, Trump ran under this, some Reform Party or something, and obviously he didn't go anywhere with it, I haven't checked what period of the primaries he, left, but, he didn't get a whole lot of support, right? So here we come to 16 years later, and he gets huge support. And why is it? I think it's because of Barack Obama. You had the extreme left, and then candidates wanted, well, they either didn't want a politician or they wanted someone that was extreme right. Now, some people will say, well, no, Trump isn't a Republican. He's a populist. And, I guess that's up to you to decide. He ran in the Republican Party. But, a lot of Republican congressmen hate him. And, and really tried to do just everything they could to get rid of him. But we have this extreme, this shift. And so, then we have the Biden debacle years, where we have a president who, at the end, people are finally admitting that he doesn't have his wits about him. In the final days, he pardons people that had anything to do with January 6th so that, they can't be investigated and charged with a crime. He also, in his little flurry of pardons that he does, he pardons a drug lord from Connecticut that murdered an 8-year-old kid. And that guy's pardoned now. He's free to go. Bizarre. But anyway, we have this pendulum. So it's like now, and what's been happening too, and this is a steady progression, we have the branches of government, the three branches. We have the judicial, we have the congressional and we have the presidential, those three branches. What we see is the branches not doing what the branches are supposed to do. We have the judicial making laws by interpreting laws incorrectly and making new laws out of old laws. We have Congress that all of a sudden decides it's the judicial and it wants to investigate everything. And then we have the president who basically has grown more and more powerful. We basically have a situation now where a president can declare war. I mean, it's right in the Constitution that he can't, but he basically can. And the idea of these executive orders and the pardons have gotten way out of hand. So now we have someone come in, Trump's in there, and he's going to like write 1,000 executive orders. And it's like, well, you know, a lot of those things, I'm in favor of what he's doing, but is it the proper way to do it? And honestly, he's trying to do 12 years of work in a 4-year term. And, you know, but he ran on this idea that people didn't like big government. People didn't like what happened to the January 6 people. People didn't like this. People didn't like that. And Trump's up there saying, well, I am for the people, this, and this. And so what do? You have a huge number of people go over his side. And of course, in this country, usually, when you look at the voting thing, there's more Democrats than there are Republicans. So the only way a Republican can win some of these major offices sometimes is if Democrats shift over and vote for the Republican. Or Democrats are disillusioned and they just stay home. So we've created this horrible swing. So now 1,000 executive orders. Then, you know, eventually, now maybe the pendulum will stay there for a while. Certainly stay that way to the left with the Supreme Court for, you know, decades. Now it's on the right. So, you know, is it going to stay for, let's say, will Vance get 2 terms as a president? Or will this just swing right back? And then you have a Democrat. He's going to write 2,000 executive orders. He's going to pardon, you know, the entire state of Delaware from any crimes they ever committed. So what I'm saying is the American government is becoming non-functional. And it's becoming non-functional because there's too much bureaucracy, you know. Then Trump just kind of says this, and it's like, I don't know how this will work out. Oh, we'll buy you out, any federal employee, if you leave before the 6th of February. That's pretty close, right? Make a decision like that. We'll buy you out. In other words, they're going to give them some extra money if they leave now. And I assume they'll still have, you know, their pensions or whatever, you know. So it's like, gee, what if 1.5 million people, federal people, say, oh, I don't like what's going on. I'm going to leave. You know, it's, you know, so it's like, you know, the scenarios that are being set up are kind of ridiculous. Do I agree with less federal employees? Yes. Do I agree with a federal government that's, I don't want to say weaker, but doesn't have the authority it does now over the states? Yeah, I believe that. But is it really the executive orders that are the way to do this? And again, what about pardons? To me, pardon implies guilt. And if I was in charge, you know, I'd rewrite whatever that executive order thing is, and I'd say all pardons can only be granted after there's a valid conviction. In other words, you can't just, you know, pardon your son for things that he hasn't been tried for. You know, there were a lot of things left. And so, and you can't pardon January 6th defendants if they haven't already been convicted. Now, if they're locked up in jails, rotting somewhere, which some of them were, and treated unconstitutionally, like some of them were, then that's another issue, I guess. But normally, I think pardons should be reserved for people who were actually convicted of a crime. What do you think about that? Do you think that's true? Or can a president just say, oh yeah, this thing about Watergate, I'm not only pardoning myself, I'm pardoning these 10 other people that were in on it with me. Nixon didn't do that, but can you imagine the outcry if he had done that? So it's just, we're in this ridiculous phase of government or history of America, and it only appears to be getting worse. People are more polarized. It's like this huge fight about immigration, and of course, our borders have been like a sieve in that people they've let through that were supposed to go to immigration hearings either didn't go or the hearings were just canceled, leaving these people, they called it catch and release. You caught them, but then they got released in the United States, and they actually have no status. They're not, the status is, the legal term is illegal alien. The preferred term is undocumented immigrants, but that's not the legal term. So anyway, we have this mess, and we've seen what's happened in Europe with this huge flood of people into countries, changing them, violent crimes, rape gangs in certain countries that are basically allowed to function unhampered. And they're kind of like telling the women that have been raped, well, it was your fault. You shouldn't have been out there. You shouldn't have done this, shouldn't have done that. What kind of craziness is it when we start blaming women for the fact that they've been they've been ganged, raped by people? But see, that's where we get when we fill our minds with hate, we no longer see clearly. We become extremely polarized, and again, that's what's happening. And is there any hope? I don't know if there's any hope for America. Could America be dead in the next 10 years? Sure, it could happen. There's so many different forces and pressures that are being applied in America. So if the government's around stumbling in the dark, not knowing where they're going or what they're doing, it makes America a pretty easy target. So, answer this question. Are we now in a situation where we are polarizing people more, not less? Should pardons be given to people who have not been convicted of a crime? So, tell me what you think. Bye.